Welcome to Prime Properties, the real estate show in Columbus, Ohio. I'm here with my buddy Chris Reed. Chris, how are you?
Good. How are you, Mike?
I'm good. I'm excited because you've got a long history in this business that even goes back beyond yourself. You were kind of like second generation, I would say, in this.
Yes.
So if there's something related to real estate, I have a feeling you know it.
Well, I hope so. Let's hope so.
And we're going to have fun with this because this is not going to be, we're not going to tell you all these kind of rules and regulations. We're going to talk about the real part of real estate, which is part of why you need a real estate agent on your side, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about you. Tell people your background because I kind of delved into it for 2 seconds, but tell people why you are where you're at.
Well, I appreciate that. So I'm with Keller Williams Classic Realty, and it's important that we say that because in any advertising that real estate agents do in the state of Ohio, they have to identify themselves and their brokerage name. So Chris Reed, Keller Williams Classic Realty, now get that out of the way.
We covered it. We're good.
Good. So yeah, I went to Grove City High School.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in '84.
Okay.
84, and in 1983, through the high school's cooperative office education program, I started working for the Credit Bureau of Columbus. So I worked for the Credit Bureau of Columbus for several years, and so I got the credit reporting part of it down, went on to the banking industry, used to be Bank One at the time, so I got the banking part of it down, and then went to work for a home builder. So I've worked in various stages of real estate, the credit reporting, the banking side, the home building side. So it kind of gave me a really good foundation to launch my business. Not to mention that my mom was a real estate broker in Ohio for decades. And
she was a big deal because I had heard her name in association with yours, but it was almost like her little boy. Well, her little boy isn't so little anymore.
So I started going to listing appointments and open houses with my mom when I was 9 years old.
Did you have, at that time, did you have a passion for it, or did you kind of like look at
it?
No, it didn't like awaken anything inside you?
No, not really. It wasn't until later on in life that I decided that I really wanted to be an agent, and but my mom certainly was a huge influence on me, for sure.
So you've been in this long enough to know the ins and outs of this, but for somebody that's sitting there that's listening on a weekend or on Facebook Live, I know this seems like a really basic question, but I don't think people really understand the importance of what your answer is going to be. But what is the importance of working with a real estate agent?
Yeah. It's really, really important to have an agent represent you, and mainly because there's so many things they can do for you. And as a buyer in Ohio, in most cases, although there are some brokerages that charge buyers, but with the Reed Group at Keller Williams Classic Properties, there's never a fee to you as a buyer. But realtors can help you determine your buying power. That is your financial reserves plus your borrowing capacity. That's a really important thing to do up front so that you know exactly how much you can afford. You don't want to go look at a Cadillac if all you can afford is a Chevy, right?
Right.
So we want to make sure we put you and we show you the homes that you're going to be available to buy and that you feel comfortable buying. So that's what big piece of we can refer you to lenders best qualified to help you. There's so many resources that real estate agents have to assist folks in their home search. Sometimes properties that buyers are seeking are active but not maybe advertised in the market, and might take some investigation by your agent to find all those available properties. And then of course we assist them in the selection process by providing objective information. So many times buyers will walk into a house and they'll get all tied up in the emotion part of it. May have high ceilings or something that they really, really love, but we have to make sure that, we don't want a buyer necessarily to buy the most expensive house in the neighborhood because, obviously the best investment in real estate is to buy the least expensive home in the most expensive neighborhood. That's going to protect your value the best, So there's different things that we do for buyers like that. Not only that, we can help buyers negotiate. There's a myriad of negotiating factors, including price, terms, date of possession, inclusion or exclusion of repairs and equipment. The purchase agreement provides a period of time for them to complete appropriate inspections and investigations of the property. So before we get bound to those kinds of things, we want to make sure that the buyer understands them and that we put together the most lucrative offer that we can, not only to benefit the buyer, but we want the seller to accept that offer too, right? So in today's market, especially with what we saw this spring and summer with the multiple offers and the highest and best, it's important to put together an offer package it's going to make the seller feel warm and fuzzy.
Well, let me back up real quick because I want to go to the first thing you said because all of these are important points.
Right.
But when you're kind of talking about if you have, champagne taste and a beer budget, if somebody's thinking about a home, like, what's the first initial step they take with you? Is it, I'm contacting you because it was a referral or I heard advertising or whatever?
Yeah.
Break down when you're trying to protect your person that you're buying for. Right. It's not just, I want your money, let's move on. It is, I want to put you in a property that you're happy with, but I also want you to come back a second, a third, and a fourth time.
For sure.
So what is the key questions that you ask those people to get them in the right home for them?
Yeah. So the first thing that we're going to do, like with a first-time buyer that might call us or was referred to us, is we're going to get them to our lender. Now, there's all kinds of lending options out there. We happen to have a preferred lender called NFM Lending. The reason we use NFM is because they actually take our buyers. They take great care of our buyers. They're available on the evenings and the weekends, and that's important because a lot of banks aren't open then, right? So if you need a pre-approval letter that's address specific, on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock, good luck calling.
Well, sometimes you have to set up a meeting on a Saturday morning and have a specific date, and you're still sitting in the lobby.
Exactly. So we use NFM Lending because not only do they give us a pre-approval letter that's address and price specific, and then we can count on it, but they're also underwritten. So an underwritten pre-approval letter is going to get us farther down the road with sellers who have multiple offers on the table.
So when you're in that situation, so now you know what their credit score, you know what their lending or borrowing capacity is.
Yes.
So the next step is, do you kind of investigate them and say, I would assume that you're saying, do you have kids or you're going to have kids? School system's important. There has to be kind of like a laundry list, but it's not something you just kind of throw out like, check this box, but you're kind of feeling them out as people because you're building a relationship with them.
We want to put them in the right spot. We want them to be in a spot that not just is a good fit for them, but it's a smart investment as well, because we want them to come back later on, and we want them to call us when they go to sell. And when they go to sell and they make a huge profit, we want them to be happy with that, right?
Well, yeah, because you want the huge profit so they can buy the next big house, right? Well, I mean, you want them to stay in the family, right?
Absolutely.
It's not a churn and burn type of thing.
Absolutely not. It's just always about doing the next right thing. And for our buyers, and so much of my business right now is referral business, and it's fantastic. Referral from past clients, from family and friends, and because we've taken good care of people. And you can see that by our reviews. Today is in today's world, it's all about the online reviews, right? And Yelp and all these different websites that you can go on and look. And so I just don't get the mentality of some people that just want to make a quick dollar and move on to the next one.
But you see a lot of that out there, especially when the market was really, really hot, and it was probably as hot as it's been since, let's say, 05 to 07 before the crash.
Exactly.
So housing prices are rising. If you're with the wrong person, and I don't mean them as people, but if their incentive is, I'm going to make more money, it's just, I'm putting you in a house. I'm not putting you in a home. Correct. I look at the difference being a house is just, that's where I go and sleep until I go to work the next day, but a home is where you're raising a family, you're building memories, and that seems to be your approach.
Absolutely, for sure.
I'm not putting words in your mouth.
No, absolutely right. We want people to be happy with everything. We want them to be in a great place. My goal ultimately is for our buyers to be so excited when they go into contract that they just can't sleep at night for waiting to move into that house.
How long do you think, because you've told me some things, of how the market was hot and how people were just kind of, their house on the market one day, it's gone the next. Yeah. And you got to get them in another house, right? Yeah. Yeah. But you also don't sleep. Like, I know you personally don't sleep. You're texting or calling me at 11:30 at night on a Tuesday. And I'm just like, you have nothing else going on? Yeah. So when this is happening, you seem to get a lot of juice from this.
I mean, I can't even begin to explain it to you. It's just such an adrenaline rush to help people. It's just very, very rewarding for me personally.
You talked about the emotions of buying a home, and it is probably your biggest purchase you ever make. I mean, especially the first time. Yeah. Do you feel yourself kind of get emotionally attached to that too?
Absolutely.
Like, there's got to be a certain part of you where you're like, I put that family in that home. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So, how do you talk to somebody who... We have another person that does a show, and he calls it the honey-do list, which I think is the wrong way to put it. But when one person loves a home, and you probably can identify this right off the bat, like he or she loves this, and the other one's not sold on it. Mm-hmm. Do you have to be kind of the referee?
Absolutely, yeah.
How do you handle that?
It's just tough because ultimately you can't make the decision for them. You want them both to be on board, right? But sometimes we get in a situation where one of the two will love it and the other one won't, and then it's So my job is just to point out all the positive things that we can and to try to overcome the objections that they present to us during the process. But yeah, sometimes I just have to take a step back and let them duke it out,
But the exciting part would be if you're able to, like, you see that kind of come together, because you're a mediator in a way, but it's
Correct.
like you still have a job to do.
Right.
The emotion of buying, and I don't think it's the price of things. I think it's the emotion of being a part of something.
Yeah.
You're a part of that process, but I would think there's some people that are like, I gotta have this because the white picket fence or the backyard or whatever. People start to formulate in their mind what that property is gonna be for their lifetime.
Yeah.
Whereas, do you still look at properties that way, or do you kind of look at it and go, this is perfect for this person or this person? I've always been told, don't get attached to material things.
Yeah. So again, it kind of just goes back to sometimes people let their emotions take over, and I have one couple that went to a house to look at it with one of my buyer agents. They absolutely fell in love with it, but I knew from looking at it on paper, it was the high end of the price point for the neighborhood. The neighborhood was near railroad tracks, and the builder wasn't the kind of quality builder I would like to see them buy, and so they were all excited. They wanted to move forward, and I felt like it was my responsibility to tell them all of the things that I was concerned about for them. They ultimately end up not buying that house and buying something else. At the time, they were not happy with me. They weren't. I think they would have much rather at
because
the time.
You did your job, though.
But I did my job, and it could have been a quicker sale. Could have been actually a more expensive house, actually. But I felt it was my duty to tell them the things I was concerned about. And they later on, when they found the house that they really loved, were so thankful to me. I still have a letter on my desk at home that they just were so happy that I was honest with them about it.
Do you get testimonial letters a lot?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's got to make it worthwhile.
It absolutely does, for sure.
You ever get pictures of people's kids?
No.
I mean,
no.
I
tell you what I do get is people will send me pictures of themselves doing things in their house, or hey, we just did this.
That's what I meant.
Kitchen.
Something like that, like we just put in a new countertop, or we just cut the grass.
We
the
definitely
first
get those. And what's really also fun is the pop-ups on Facebook. The 1 year ago or whatever that pop up, and it's like, gosh, there's a year gone by already, and they've done all these great things, and so yeah, it's a very rewarding business.
I see those constantly, like you're tagging and all that stuff since we've become friends on Facebook, and I'm like, it makes me want to buy a house because I feel like I'm getting left out. Like everybody seems to be buying a house and they're thinking Christopher Reed.
Yeah, man.
Can you give an example? Like you said the house with the railroad tracks and all that.
Yeah.
Has there been a house that you think is perfect for somebody, but you didn't push it really hard because they didn't buy into it?
Yeah, I mean,
because you're advising them what not to get into, but there's got to be some that you got to be like, this is totally for you.
It's funny you say that because actually my daughter and son-in-law, believe it or not, I've sold hundreds, almost 1,000 different homes to different buyers, right? And sometimes they say the family though is the hardest to work with, right? Yeah. So hopefully Erica won't be too upset with me. But my daughter and son-in-law, I had this perfect house that I thought in a great neighborhood, low end. It was actually a short sale at the time. It was going to be at low end of the price point, a great neighborhood, and they just didn't like it. And I really wanted them to buy it. They didn't. They bought something else and did very well with it. But sometimes people, just don't listen to your advice.
Right. Listen, you get that in all walks of life, but for you, it's got to be. I would think you still discern a purchase based on some of your own preferences. Like you have your own biases on anything, whether it's food or housing, whatever.
Absolutely.
But there's got to be a part of you that goes, this has the right amount of bathrooms, the right tile, and you're trying to find somebody for that home because you would buy it.
Right. Yeah, that's so true.
But how do you keep yourself from getting that? Because you're an emotional kind of person, like in a good way. Like you're Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky all the time. But when you're running into that, you can't push them too much, right? Because it can't be. True. I really love this.
Yeah, we're not. I try not to be overly pushy, and I say that. I let people know what I feel and how I feel about it, but I try not to be too aggressive because I don't want anyone to feel like they're pushed into anything. I want the decision to be their own. But I want to help them come to a good decision at the same time. So sometimes it's kind of a fine line that we walk.
Do you find yourself riding that line a lot more lately?
Yeah.
I mean, when the housing market is hot, it's great for you. But you also have to keep in mind that person's going to buy another house in 2 to 5 to 10 years.
Well, what's been so frustrating for me over the last year or so, just the fact that when the market was so hot over the spring and summer, when literally homes would sell in hours, and we'd take someone to go show it. By the time we got home to write the offer, it was already in contract. So trying to explain to someone that, look, if you don't make a decision right now, this decision won't be open to you, won't be available to you. So I felt like over the last year or two, we have to be a little more pushy, and it feels like we're being pushy. But we're also pushing towards making a decision quickly, because if they don't make that decision, the option won't be available to them. So it feels like we've been more pushy lately, and I kind of I don't like to be pushy, but at the same time, I feel like it's my duty to tell you that if you don't make a decision right now on this property, you won't have the ability to make the decision later on if it's going to be sold.
Well, you are there to advise them and give your best advice. So,
yes.
And some people, they probably don't like that. They might think they're being pushed,
they probably don't.
They also don't like losing out on a property because somebody kind of laid back and said, well, it's up to you.
Right.
That's the kind of person that if I was when I bought my home, it was a referral, and it drove me nuts because he didn't want, and I love this guy. This is a really good friend of mine.
Okay.
He didn't want to go to properties. He just give us the keys, and then I thought, man, you've gotten to show up. You know, because I'm going to make a bid on this house, and you haven't seen it. You know, so I was really happy with that. That's why I never bought another house from him. But I want to get into things that people need to be on the lookout for. We're going to take a break right now.
Okay.
But on the other side of the break, Chris is going to break this down for us. You're listening to Prime Properties, and we'll be right back. You all good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, just keep talking to me like this.
Okay.
What I want to do is, are there 3 kind of like just ultimate fuck up things that people do? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm looking for an agent, what do I want to know? Like, if I see this, like I just said right there, like he's not even going to show up.
Yeah.
I don't know how often that happens for you guys, but I'm saying if there's some things there, because someone's going to be out driving around listening to some Sunday 95 and go, oh shit, our guy does that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I want to be careful not to.
I'm not saying bash him. I'm saying in general.
I don't know that there's 3 things. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I don't know. I get a little, when we talk about my mom and stuff, I get a little emotional. Because she just died.
Oh, sorry.
So it's okay. No, it's fine. It's just so I get a little emotional there. For a minute. So
I did not know.
No, that's okay. Yeah, no, she died in February. It's just a little tough. So, but at any rate, no, this is going good. I feel this is really good.
Just you're rushing through. Remember when I said don't look?
I know,
but it's okay. It's okay.
I started reading that stuff pretty much.
Right, but when you do that, I have to pay attention to what you're saying so we can go back. So I did. I couldn't get through the second part because I was like, "What the hell did he say?" So let's talk about common mistake. We're going to come back. Attention, whether it's a detail or whether it's the person. That is a common mistake in any sales related thing. But are they paying attention, or do you want to get into something specific?
Yeah. No. I mean, whatever.
I mean, communication and attention are the 2 biggest things that I would say.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, just keep talking. You're doing a great job.
How much more do we have? How much longer do we have to go?
13 minutes.
Oh gosh. Okay.
We're fine. You just went through 16 right there.
I did.
Yeah. You
really?
Didn't even feel it.
Wow.
Listen, I'm gonna end up cutting you off. Is the problem?
Okay.
All right. So let me do the math on this. 19 to okay. We're gonna go to 32. All right. I'm gonna bring us back. Ready? Welcome back to Prime Properties. I'm here with Chris Reed. Chris, why don't you do it? You do the disclaimer so much better.
So we have to make sure that we disclose not just our name, but our brokerage name as well. So it's Chris Reed with Keller Williams Classic Properties Realty. And that being said, we can move forward. And,
we did follow the rules of advertising. Rule of 3, we got it in there. I'm sure we're going to get another one before we're done.
Yeah.
Before the break, we were going to talk about common mistakes that you see in the business, and it's not to pick on anybody, but I thought one of the things we would talk about, I think there's 2 things that are important. Mm-hmm. And based on, and it's not just plugging you, I never bought a house from you, right? So this is not me saying, hey, Chris, give me a deal.
Right.
But from the people that I talked to that you have sold a house, or you've bought and sold their house, their 2 biggest things were communication and attention. Right. And they said if you reach out to him, he will get back to you, and he will communicate thoroughly what's going on. The market, He will communicate what it's going to cost, what your lender, like who to go see.
Yeah.
Those are the two, and I think they're two completely separate things. That's my own opinion.
Yeah.
But when you are doing your job for somebody, you've got to be on top of both things.
You do, yeah. So from a listing agent's perspective, and I'm primarily a listing agent, although we work with buyers as well, one of the most important things we do is when we talk to a seller, we're going to get to them what we call a net to seller right away. Because in Ohio, there's lots of things that you're going to pay when you go to sell a house. Those settlement charges are not just the commissions. You know, there's property taxes, because in Ohio, all 88 counties bill property taxes in the arrears. Not that they're delinquent on their taxes, but when you make your payment for the taxes in January and July, you're actually paying the previous year. So when you go to sell your house, you've got to give the buyer a credit. And that credit, depending on where you live and how much your price is, how much your property value is, that can be a substantial amount of money. So one of the things that we like to do is we like to set clear expectations. In fact, clear expectations is one of the most important things I drill into agents that work for me and I try to mentor. And that is that we tell the seller right up front, here's what your charges are going to be, so that there's no surprises. We don't like surprises at the end unless they're good ones, right?
Right.
So,
like when you find out you got PMI and no one discussed it, and you walk out of the room. Yeah, I know what you mean by surprise.
Yeah. Well, the lenders are, and that's why it's so important to work with a great lender. I mean, there's so many options for lenders today. But it's really important that you work with a lender that discloses things and that's honest with you. I'm working a deal right now where I have the listing, and I won't say the name of the bank, but it's a large bank that we're working with. And right now we're on our 4th extension for closing. And it's really unfair to the seller, because the seller's continuing to pay carry on that house. The insurance, the utilities, their payment, all those things are continuing to pay. And now we're into like the 6th or 7th week of extension. I mean, this deal should have been closed, almost 2 months ago. So it's important to work with a lender that's going to do what they say they're going to do.
But also an agent that knows that that's the route. This is where we should go, right? I mean,
absolutely.
There's a reason that you have a preferred lender. It's kind of like you always have a doctor, a lawyer, and a real estate person, right?
Right.
Like, because you need those things in your life.
Correct.
What I'd like you to touch on is kind of the positives. I kind of brought up a negative, not a negative, but like, I don't like to deal with these people are not going to follow through. I want to talk about the actual follow through of people. Like, when you have somebody that's in your hands, what are the things that you do first for them?
Yeah. Well, again, we make sure we get them the right lender that's going to take good care of them. We make sure we have a clear understanding of what they're looking for, so that the properties we send them are what they want, in the area that they want, with the amenities that they want. Those are really, really important things. And then when we do go to actually, find a house that works for them, we submit our offer. We want all of the details on the purchase offer to be right. So many times as a listing agent, I'll get offers that, have the wrong parcel number, it might have the wrong county, and it's half filled out or filled out incorrectly, or it says something's attached and it's not, and it's like that's not making me my seller feel warm and fuzzy about that offer. If they can get the offer right, can we expect them to do what they say they're going to do, right? So all of those details are really, really important, down to just the little details are important. Details are important, man.
Absolutely. Do you get, when you're talking about, you see these things are incomplete or they're not right, you do have a certain feel to this, like, I've seen this before, this is not going to pan out. Like, you're able to explain that to the person you're representing, right? I mean, you're kind of like, I know what the next step is. It's kind of like
it's like after you do hundreds and hundreds of transactions, you get a pretty good feel for where something's going to go. And I guess you can call it a gut feeling if you want to. But yeah, I mean, you see a certain lender name come through, and it's like, oh gosh, I've had so many problems with them in the past, and it's just you relay that information, your experience and your knowledge of that particular lender or that particular outfit with your seller. And that can impact a buyer and their ability to get a successful offer negotiated, for sure.
What's the best outcome that somebody could have in this situation? I mean, I know in this market that we just went through, I know it's slowing down a little bit because interest rates are changing, but if you're going into next year, do you anticipate the market being that hot? Are you kind of priming the pump now to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing next year?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Right now, the market is shifting. The market's definitely shifting in 36 of the 48 areas that this Columbus Board of Realtors tracked. We're seeing market trends kind of go the other way. Now, it's not by any means a buyer's market, and it's still a seller's market, but things are taking longer. There's more inventory. They're taking longer to sell. We're seeing lots of price decreases, and so I think, the heyday of what we saw in the spring and summer of this year is starting to fade a little bit for sure.
The one thing I will say is I think I'm not going to say it's not a halt, but a slowdown in the real estate market is we didn't have that before. I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday.
Yeah.
When the housing bubble burst, it was because, well, Chris has 3 houses and I've got 4 houses and I've got renters and all. And then when it burst, we were all stuck with all these other properties. Mm-hmm. Now it's a 1-to-1 ratio, so we're not losing. I don't have 2 mortgages that I'm trying to carry. But what I'm seeing is it seems like it's not dropping. Those $300,000 homes aren't 200 now. It is.
Oh no!
I'm
not saying that. I'm not saying that property values are going down at all. But
right.
But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of sellers that still believe they can just list their house for get whatever they want. You know. And I don't know if it's because listing agents aren't saying, hey, that's not a realistic number. Right. Or there's still kind of pie in the sky kind of feeling about what they can get for their house. But that's why appraisers are around, to keep things in balance and in check.
And you've got people that you would refer. Also, you have appraisers that you use, kind of like a preferred lender.
Well, we have a preferred lender that we use that uses appraisers.
Okay.
And I have appraisers I can recommend to someone if they need an appraisal for a specific reason. But we do a pretty good job, I believe, of giving someone an analysis, a market analysis of what their home is worth. It used to be people would say to me, Chris, what's my house worth? And I'd say to them, it's worth whatever someone's willing to pay. And then the market crashed, and
and then it's worth whatever you can get out of it.
And so things have changed quite a bit, but who knows what the future will hold for sure. Real estate's always has been and always will be a very, very smart investment. I truly believe it's just the American dream is still alive and well, and that's what people want, and home ownership is a really, really important thing, and we just really enjoy being a part of helping people get home.
I never asked anybody, as much as I talk about real estate or home remodeling or any of that, you were actually on the front lines of this. When that housing bubble cracked, did it kind of dampen your spirits about this? I mean, I know that...
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. Because at the time I was working for a small brokerage that had a contract with for a lot of the HUD deals. So when the market crashed, believe it or not, I actually was making more money. I was making a lot of money. I was making a lot of money then, actually.
Right.
That's not that I still don't make a lot of money, but when the market crashed, there were a lot of short sales. There were a lot of
but it was monopoly. It's like let's just keep making these transactions happen. Yeah. Versus now, I think people are more financially responsible. But mm-hmm. when you're in that, like, I was in a sales situation where it was when we were doing advertising, mm-hmm. and what we first saw was housing developers weren't advertising, and then car dealers.
Yeah.
And it's almost like in an old west town when you see that like tumbleweed go through, and you're like, something's really off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But those people that were in that business, like, I can go back and 10 of my friends that were in real estate gave up because they couldn't take it. They were making really good money,
right?
But they weren't the best.
They did not capitalize on the market conditions or whatever, maybe.
Right, but they also weren't thorough. They mm-hmm. were there because hey, they're hiring.
Yeah,
real estate's the thing to do.
Yeah.
You stuck with it, and I think there's something to be said for that. That you didn't give up and
thank you.
You weren't a greeter at Walmart all of a sudden because it wasn't working out,
Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with being a greeter at Walmart.
There's not.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, it just happened to be that when the market crashed, I went to work for a brokerage, a small brokerage that did a lot of HUD deals, and we had a lot of business that way, and we did a lot of short sales, and it was a very lucrative time for investors to come along and make great buys. And a lot of that happened, for sure. And,
but you can't do it now because the rates or the price of homes is so high.
There's very, very few short sales. I mean, it's a very small percentage of the overall. The real estate owned and short sales are a very, very small percentage of the total inventory right now. And so trying to find a great deal or a steal, so to speak, is not as prevalent as it was 10 years ago. Let's just put it that way.
Well, even if you did, who wants to move in the middle of winter and do all that? I mean, I'm seeing some horror stories of people that waited finally close and they're moving and we get snow the day that they're doing it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some horror stories that way.
Yeah, you know, but at the same time, though, during the winter months actually can be an advantage to sellers because there's such little competition, right? So, I think, you know, people ask me, Chris, what's the best time to list my house? I'm always going to say, you know, yesterday. Yesterday was the best time to list your house. But honestly, people that want to list their house in November and December, I think it's a smart move, to be honest with you. If they can put up with the showings during the holidays and all that stuff, because there's a lot of folks take their house off the market during the November and December and January. And so, and of course, Columbus is a football town, so not a lot goes on in those 3 months, right? Because not everyone wants to go out and look at houses on the weekend. But, you know, I think selling your house during the winter is a smart thing to do, honestly, because there's less competition. Your house gets more visibility, too.
You just nailed it because we've run out of time for this week, and I was going to say, can you leave people with one tip? And you already did it. So that's our one tip for the week. Every week we're going to leave you with one real estate tip. And Chris, you just nailed it. So
Thanks,
I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
We will see you next Sunday.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Just going to get you.
I could tell it was over. How'd it go?